uh, it would help to turn on the microphone. Um, Hello, and welcome to the middle of the film. Um, so what is this about, Terry? This is about nothing. Uh, no specific topic. All it is I've accomplished some things, and I'm pressing the record button to say what I did. And maybe make a couple of other observations. And why are these observations even, worth it? Doesn't everybody already, understand things and nuances and stuff about war games with miniatures? Well, yeah, you kind of do when you're in the hobby. And if you're just getting into the hobby, this can be daunting. And you go, man, forget it. I'm just going to stay with board games. This is crazy. There's just too much stuff going on. Well, this is true. Yes. And one might say, how the heck can I get started in this? Or how did you get started in this? And well, I can tell you, as a child of the 60s, the way I got started was comic books. I know. At the back or throughout the comic book, there would be advertisements for a company called Helen of Toy. That's right. And this company produced miniature figures, plastic, injection molded, cheap, nothing to write home about, but in various eras. Sea power, air power, jets, American Civil War, Rome versus whatever. All these little neat little games, they were board games you could send away for, $1.99 in those days. And they would come shipped to you with a plastic play mat, if you will, just a sheet like a garbage bag of printed battlefield terrain. And you'd play this board game. Sometimes it was always a hex, but it was not a hex grid. It was never a hex grid that I remember. It was always a square grid. So it was kind of like a big chess game or checkers game. But the fact is, it was a little more than that. It was one page of rules, if that, and you played the game with your buddy and your friends or whatever. And that is the way I got started. But interestingly enough, even back then, just before we moved to Canada, I didn't really have anybody that many people to play with. I was about the only one involved in this. Now, everything changed when we moved to Toronto because the influx of the influence of British culture inundated Canada, and because of that, companies called Airfix and Fujimi and or was Fuji? No, that was cameras. Hasegawa, although Hasegawa was 172, everybody else was in 176. And then I went to a toy store and I saw this and with my mom and I went, oh my God, these are like the guys I was playing with on the plastic, battle map, but these are better. So I started collecting everything. Everything. Everything HO. In other words, the British scale for HO is not the same as the American, at least, let me put it this way. 187th scale is more appropriate for the 176th. Wait, did I just say that? Anyway, the HO scale presented from these manufacturers was more closer to 187 scale and not the 172 from Hasegawa, which is where it all started. Because that seemed to me, I think Hasegawa was the only one at the time that was doing anything in 172. So therefore, we were all in 176 for years and years up until I was like 14 or 15. And we played at a library in Brampton, Ontario, and we had a huge group. And back in those days, rules were not simple. It was not a board game with miniatures. It was a close to being just a simulation, as close to the Pentagon simulation as you can get. We were nuts. Where everybody was nuts, just crazy gaga about the games that we were playing and the rules that were available from England and so on, how to play these games. Well, jump ahead 40 years. And Terry's now living in Illinois, and everything has become Disneyfied or battle cried. Everything is simple, as much simple as you can get it. Why? Because the games have to be fast. Nobody has time like we did back in the 70s. Nobody has time for a 3-hour game. There is absolutely no way. You'd be lucky to get people to sit down for an hour. And I mean really lucky. So, this rant is about that topic. How to get people interested. And one way you do it is by having some, like we see here, some pretty cool terrain. And I'm hoping that the response is going to be good at Adepticon in 2024, Schaumburg, Illinois, Renaissance Hotel. So let's hope, right? But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's okay. I enjoy doing this. This is my movie, as I said before. This is my career that would have been, if I had gone to Hollywood after school and started to make movies, I would have definitely gone into just models. Which why it aggravates me to see LucasArts or films about documentaries about how they made their models, because I was like, oh my God, I could have done that. I could have been there, but I didn't. You know, selfish Terry went back to Canada to work on industrial videos. Anyway, so long story short, I became a technical writer and I worked for telecom and aerospace, and that's where I'm at now. And I have been for many years. So, the detail of the terrain is an attractive feature. It's work, but it's an attractive feature. The advent of 3D printing has enabled me to do many, many good things for a very low cost, relatively speaking. I no longer have to buy something on the spot if I needed it. Well, for one reason, there's no hobby stores left. They've all closed up. Everything's online, so you can't go anywhere to buy anything. You'd be lucky if you found something at Hobby Lobby, for instance, or Michael's, but definitely not Michael's. I mean, Hobby Lobby is the last remaining vestige of anything models. And only because they have stuff for model trains do they have any terrain at all. So you're left to making your own. Ergo, 3D printing. Whenever I needed something, I just 3D printed it. If I could find the file, because I'm not an artist in that way yet. I'm wanting to be a 3D artist so that I can draw these kinds of things, but I just have other things to do. And there are people way better than me that do this already, so I'll farm it out. Anyway, cornfields as you see, and so on. The decorations alongside the rivers, like this stuff here, just well, you can say it's cover, but it's really decoration. What does it represent? You know, reeds, grasses, all those things alongside the river or a creek. And when you look at this terrain, you go, well, that's a stone wall, that's a fence. No, it's cover. When you look at a hill, if you're on the hill and the other guy isn't, you're in cover. When you're in a forest, you're in cover. Okay, so it's all just cover. Now, what about a forest on a hill? That's a cover level 2. What about a stone? What about a wall, fence, whatever, on a hedge? Doesn't matter what it looks like, it's cover. So that would be double cover. So a fence-like thing on a hill is double cover. And what does that mean? When you fire at it, if it's cover because it's on a hill, it's a -1 combat penalty, right? Now you're in a hill. Now you're on a hill behind a fence or a wall or whatever. Now it's double cover, so now it's -2 when you're firing at it. What does -2 mean? Well, there's a couple of things. One, it means you have to be closer because that penalty means that your shots are just impacting everywhere and you're shooting uphill, for instance, right, in this case. So remember, that's, I don't care how many men you got, it's going to take a while to cause any damage up there. Look at Marie's Heights at Fredericksburg, same. Impossible. I mean, incompetence rules, right? Anyway, so -2 means that on the die roll, if you're at a range that's automatic, like you're within one band, the first band, which is an automatic hit, it's going to be you got to roll color, blue. But now it's double cover. Now you got to roll code. What would triple cover be? Well, fortress, I don't know. Yeah, but definitely it would be code and color, and then it would be impossible. See, you see the progression. And remember, when it's infantry fire, you're talking about range bands of 3 or 4 hexes. I think it's 3 for muskets. So 3 for all the muskets, right? So automatic color, code and color. That's the way it works. Simple, right? Okay. Anyway, air, and so therefore, you need to be very close or have a whole bunch of men to do any damage to such, to said defender or opponent on a hill behind cover. And remember how I mentioned about these cornfields? Yeah, moving through a cornfield with 150 men is not going to be very easy to do. With 5 guys, okay. But that's not, skirmishers, okay, they ignore all terrain anyway, right? They just ignore all terrain. Except, of course, obviously a river. But moving through a cornfield is not easy. Moving through a forest is kind of the same thing. It's always going to cause you to be fatigued because you're slogging through whatever. You're trying to maintain formation because why is formation important? Because cohesiveness. You need to be with your pals and their pals and their pals, and that's the way it has to be in order to stay confident. Now you get into a cornfield, you can't see 2 feet, but someone's there. You can hear them slogging with you. Okay, let's keep going, guys. All right, well here we go. How far do we have to go through this? I don't know. Wait for one of the skirmishers to come back and say, hey, you guys got like 50 feet to go before you get to the end of the cornfield or the end of the forest or the obstacle, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's what skirmishers are for. Realistically, practically in the game, they don't really behave that way. That's not necessary. We just, don't have that kind of detail. Okay, so they're slogging through this cornfield. They come to the edge and they go, okay, right? Now we see we have a hill in front of us. We just exited the cornfield. Now we have this hill, and guess what? There's a bunch of trees on top of that hill, and it looks like, it's also some rocky, outcrops going up that hill. So this is not good. If our objective is to get up that hill, okay, you get the idea. Anyway, so more commentary when we come back. That's enough for now. And was that everything I wanted to say? I think I covered all the other stuff. We have the new improved roster card thingies, which instead of holding the 4x6 index cards, I'm going to go to these because it sits on the game table in a nice little holder, as I described earlier. And I think that's it. Now, yes. So you might say, there's still a lot of guys on the table, Terry. Okay, right. It does look like that. But some of these guys are going to be entering. Some of them are going to be starting in place, etc., etc. So it may look like a lot, but this is the entire army. This is the entire game. And I know there's only 2 batteries of artillery per side. And one might say, well, for a division, 2 batteries of artillery, I guess that's about right. Because it is one, actually it's a division and a half, which we'll call 2 divisions. 2 batteries of artillery for 2 divisions? All right, budget a little bit. There should be more, but I don't want any more. I think 2 is about right. Besides, they're mixed batteries anyway. Again, a lot of this is coming from my research, not just from Shiloh, but also Pea Ridge, Arkansas. So, right, if you know anything about it, Missouri State Guard, nah, not really, not this time. There are some Missouri, I think there might be 1 or 2 so-called guard units of sterling prices, but in this case, I wanted to go traditional Confederate army and not so much the militia or the Missouri State Guard, which anyway, long story short, we're new and motivated and sometimes a problem. So they were numerous, but yeah. Anyway, the Confederates lost the Battle of Pea Ridge because, well, not because, but in one nuance of the game, of the battle, I should say, 2 commanders were killed, and pivotal commanders at that. And as a matter of fact, Sterling Price himself was wounded. That's 3 commanders. And Earl Van Dorn, where was he? Well, he was sick. So, you can see what's going to happen here, especially with the Union getting its act together and having this grand advance that eventually happened in the battle, which was apparently a sight to behold. A massive, long, mile long advance or something of that nature, which was reported to be incredible. Anyway, there we are. We'll come back and we'll have more stuff to say.